going on, Jerome's? So, yes, it is very, very early in Minnesota Vikings training camp, but the quarterback competition, Jaren Hall is also there. But Sling and Sam Darnold brought in on a free agent deal, 1 year, $10 million. JJ McCarthy, highest drafted quarterback in team history. Also, Nick Mullens remains. Now, Mullins, who the Vikings traded for at the beginning of the 2022 season, first year with Kevin O'Connell, adofo-mensah, right before the start of the year, mainly because they found out that Kellen Mond and Sean Mannion, maybe not so much. But Nick Mullens does have the most time in the Kevin O'Connell offense of any quarterback currently on the rooster. But with the rise of JJ McCarthy, yes, like we said, early. But the way that they're divvying up snaps, Darnold with the ones, McCarthy a little bit with the ones, and mainly with the twos, there hasn't been a lot of snaps for Nick Mullens. Now, it's not a bad thing. And frankly, it's a good thing that Darnold has looked good at times, even if a bit uneven, and McCarthy is already ahead of schedule. So could it be a spot where Nick Mullens could be available for trade? Because spots on the 53-man rooster are very valuable. Generally, you like to keep two quarterbacks on the 53 when you can. But if it had been a spot where McCarthy wasn't ready, it was clearly going to be quarterback 3. Obviously, you're not going to get him on the practice squad, so it would make sense to have Mullens on the roster if he indeed was going to be your quarterback 2 if poop did hit the fan. But the Vikings could save a roster spot by potentially trading Nick Mullens, right? And with Mullens, so you got good times, bad times. I've had my share with Nick Mullens, where he's not your typical veteran backup who's just going to take what's there and check it down and all that stuff. No, Nick Mullens slings it, man, which I kind of like. And frankly, if you're going to have a backup quarterback, like your team is behind the 8 ball anyway, so may as well go the high variance route, because the whole thing about gambling is that sometimes you win. Right, and Mullens was able to put together a couple of stunning games in terms of production. Cincinnati, both the Lions games as well. Now, obviously, there's some drawbacks there because he had 8 total interceptions in those games. Some of them not his fault. Some of them definitely is his fault, like this one. Well, with Mullens and Dobbs last year, it felt like if they were going to take a sack, they would just randomly throw the ball up in the air. What's going on in that quarterback room? I don't get it, man. But Mullens did show an affinity to be able to get the ball downfield, to get the ball to Justin Jefferson. So that is why you do like him as a backup. And as was demonstrated last year, sometimes it's good to go 4 deep at quarterback, even though Mullens was the quarterback 2 last year, but spent some time on IR with a back injury. And that's really the only reason that the Josh Dobbs passionate mania took off, is because Mullens was on IR when Kirk Cousins popped his Achilles. Right, so that's basically what happened. But if McCarthy is solidified as quarterback 2, or maybe even quarterback 1, Kwesi, mind is always turning, looking to get some value, money ball style. Like, he could be working the phones, and there could be something afoot. Now, there's a couple factors here. Number 1, comfort with Darnold and McCarthy. Like, if you're completely sold with McCarthy as your QB2 or QB1, then Mullens is potentially expendable because it does come back to 53-man rooster construction. Now, would you want to carry 3 quarterbacks but gamble on Gabriel Murphy, the rookie edge rusher from UCLA, getting through waivers onto the practice squad? Because you can protect players on the practice squad, but they do have to get through initial waivers at 53-man cutdowns. And I mean, that's always a gamble. Or talk about like guys like Dwight McLaughlin, or do the Vikings want to carry 10 offensive linemen this year? Or does it come down to Taki Taimi or Levi Drake Rodriguez? Or can you keep both? All right, so it does come down to, do you want the luxury of having a Mullens on the field, which is fantastic because, hey, it's good to have 3 quarterbacks. But also, if you're on your 3rd quarterback, the season might be foobarred anyway. I don't know. Also, the backup quarterback outlook for 2025. Now, if McCarthy is ready to start, like, Darnold's not going to be back. Right? Darnold's probably going to, especially if he has a decent season here, look for greener pastures, find himself a place to start. Ideally, the Vikings could tag and trade him, so he could be gone. And also, how do they feel about Jaren Hall? Because Jaren Hall should be able to be kept on the practice squad, no muss, no fuss. And, they do like Jaren Hall. Kevin O'Connell's gone to bat for him a number of times. Do they see him developing as a solid backup for McCarthy, which, again, for a 5th-round pick in 2023, that ain't bad, man. Ain't bad. Also, waiver wire assessment. Like, if they do try to gamble and try to get Mullins down onto the practice squad, would he pass through waivers initially before they can protect him? Who knows? But also, could they get anything in trade? And plus, there's not going to be any showcase for Mullins, as most of the snaps are going to go to Darnold and McCarthy. But the Vikings, and again, Kwesi, didn't give up the farm, didn't give up that first rounder, but the Vikings are bereft of a 2, 3, and a 4. Ideally, we're going to get a projected third-round comp pick back, but also, I mean, they could use some freshening up on the back end. Vikings right now don't have a 6th-rounder, so could it be a spot where a team is looking for a backup quarterback and agrees to swap, say, the Vikings 7th for their 6th? That's probably about the neighborhood that we're talking about. Again, similar to when the Vikings... that's not the one. Similar to when the Vikings traded for Mullins right before the start of the season, because the Raiders, he wasn't going to fit in their plans with the new regime with McDaniels at the time, and the Vikings picked him up for a late round pick, mainly because they didn't want to fight with other teams on waivers or in free agency. So it could be a reverse situation of that, and teams where Mullins will be an upgrade right now. So my assessment of this is part of it is factoring into the future, but also if you needed to win a game right now, today, and your starter went down, would I rather have Nick Mullens or would I rather have their current projected backup? So there's a fistful of teams where Mullens would be an upgrade. The Tennessee Titans with Malik Willis, Chiefs with Carson Wentz. I said what I said. Chargers with Easton Stick. Now, this would be interesting because Harbaugh obviously runs a pro-style system, a lot of under center, a lot of play action, and there's going to be shades of skill crossover the other direction. It's just like how the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell were enamored with JJ McCarthy coming from the Harbaugh system. It could be the same thing with Mullins going from the Vikings to the Chargers. The Giants and Drew Lock, I never bought into Drew Lock. Get the hell out of here. Hell, Mullins might even be better than Daniel Jones. I said what I said. Eagles with Kenny Pickett, no. Packers with Sean Clifford. They also did draft. Who did they draft? It doesn't matter. But I know that Packers fans, like, there's a cult of Sean Clifford. Nah. Panthers, although if anything happens with Jordan Love, season's over. That's it, man. Panthers, Andy Dalton. I know that Dalton put up numbers last year when Bryce got dinged up, but nah. Buccaneers with Kyle Trask, no. Buccaneers with Desmond Ritter. Cardinals with Desmond Ritter, yes. 49ers with Josh Dobbs. Again, I said what I said. And it would be a return to the Bay Area because Mullins did get his start with Shanahan in San Francisco for a number of years. So that one could make a ton of sense there. But basically what it comes down to is like, hey, if you do trust JJ McCarthy, either as the backup or the starter, that does make Nick Mullens expendable. And if you could recoup a late round draft pick, I mean, it certainly would be worth the trade-off of having a veteran down on the practice squad if you can get him there. Or you could try to get him through waivers. He gets picked up and you lose him for nothing. So, TBD there. But your thoughts are thoughts. Could the Vikings trade Nick Mullens for anything? Let us know your thoughts. Our thoughts, comment section below. You guys are the best, you know what to do. Skull Production Value.